Hello, and thank you for checking out this Uniquely Divine Conversations podcast. I am Karen Slack, the owner of Unique Beauty and Meditation.
And I'm Danielle Graham from Divine Clarity. We are here together sharing conversations about spirituality, life, and everything in between.
And we are grateful for your comments and your shares and your subscribes so that we can continue to have these conversations. And just as a reminder, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. These are conversations about our life and our experiences. And yeah, yours could be different, and that's okay. So check out this episode and enjoy. Hello, Danielle. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. We were here for our bi-weekly video podcast, and we decided that we thought we would discuss tarot a little bit. Danielle is very well versed in tarot, and I am not so versed in tarot. So I'm excited to have this conversation. So tell me what you love about tarot, Danielle.
Actually, what I think I love most is how surprised I am by the fact that I actually make a living reading tarot. There was a time when I was afraid of it. I'll put it right out there. My daughter started reading before I did. I didn't want anything to do with it right away. And when I started leaning more into my spirituality, I had a mentor who said she was going to teach me tarot. And I said, not me, and we had a discussion about it. And I think a lot of people, or I should say, no, that's not how I felt. I think people think that it is anti-religion. I think there are a lot of beliefs, outdated beliefs around tarot. And I had some of those beliefs myself. So I was happy to experience it through her and learn more about it and make tarot work for me in a way that I was comfortable with my spirituality, with my business.
I love that. I love that. And I love that the dialogue in general now is broadening, both with tarot and with cards and meditation and intuitive readings and spiritual support. And there's such a broader dialogue about all of this stuff that A, we get to have these conversations, and B, everybody gets to have their own experience within this area. But especially with tarot, is it brings it out of the shadows and it opens it up for people to experience their own rhythm with it, their own process with it. And I don't know a whole lot about tarot. It's not something I specialize in. I have a tendency to lean more into more oracle and inspiration cards, but I find that I love, as I explore it a little bit more and I work with it a little bit through you, I really enjoy the depth of it and the dynamic of it. There's a structure to it, it seems, that a lot of people lean into, but then there's also a platform for it to be intuitively read, which I really enjoy that it has both.
Yeah, and I want to back up a little bit about something you said, because I was thinking that too. There was a time, especially when I very first started getting interested in the more spiritual side of things, where you would go into, I remember, like Barnes and Noble or Walden Books, and you'd see that seedy, dark little corner with the tarot cards in it and the 4 spirituality books. And I'm probably really dating myself by saying this, but now I feel, anyway, it's far more out in the open, far more accessible, far more accepted by people. So that's a fun thing. And, it's kind of everywhere. When you're looking for it, you can find it easily and more acceptable. What was the question you asked me? There's a structure to it. So yes, there is more of a structure. So, some people think tarot is much more specific. Oracle cards are much more broad. And you can go more places with oracle, but I really feel the same way with tarot. I learned how to read intuitively. My instructor wouldn't let me use the book. So there's another myth about having to memorize all of those tarot cards and know exactly what everyone means. And that's not so either. There is a structure to it. Each suit has a different meaning. Cups are about emotions, swords are about our thought process, things like that. But when you read intuitively, when you just look into those pictures and that imagery, you start to feel things, see things, know things, and things will come to you from your own experiences. And that's how you lean into reading intuitively. That's what I do.
I love helping people introduce, let me rephrase that. I love introducing people to the process of quieting their mind and listening to that intuition a little bit. And I feel like cards are such a great way, almost a gateway to experience your own unique spirituality is through cards. And admittedly, that's one of the reasons probably why I leaned away from tarot is because I knew of the structure of tarot. I didn't really know of the intuitive ability to read through tarot. So I leaned more into decks like color and oracle and inspiration decks because that left more of an open slate for me to read intuitively. And yeah, I don't think I own a book for maybe one of my new decks has a book in it, but I don't think I've ever looked at a book that came with any of my decks because I want to be able to lean into that intuitive. And I love the notion of understanding tarot, but then expanding on it intuitively. So it's not, okay, well, these are the core notions of tarot, like what the suits mean or what have you. But what do you feel with it? What do you see in this card?
Right.
And
I think that, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. You're
I
good.
think that was difficult for me and probably for some people to know that there's a structure and then be told, but don't use that. Use your gut, trust your gut. And I know in the beginning, I would, my mentor would have me read some cards or read some people with some cards. People have passed on, read about them using tarot. And then I would bring my readings to her and then we would go over the real meanings as well as. And it's amazing how you can hit on the real meanings without even knowing them. But a lot of times, even from the very beginning, I will get an intuitive hit about a card when I look at it, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the meaning. And that was hard to trust myself to go with that and be like, but this has nothing to do with this. And just know in your heart that that's what you need to say to someone, and then finding out that that was right. So that imagery, doesn't matter if you know exactly what every meaning, what all the symbols mean, you will get what you need to get by looking at a card. If you can quiet that mind and just trust yourself what's coming. And you can.
And it feels almost like it's a relationship that we build with whatever we're working with.
Mhm.
And I think there is that, it's almost like tarot requires you to slow down and build a relationship with it more long term. Whereas some of the other, I don't want to say easier, but some of the other decks are a little bit easier to build a relationship with quicker, so that it's like it pulls on different parts of yourself. So not only are you building a relationship with the deck that you're using, but you're building a relationship within yourself and within your own practice. And I like that tarot almost requires you to slow down a little bit and get into it a little bit deeper.
Right. A lot of too, I think oracle cards and cards that are not tarot, inspiration cards, mantra cards, they have phrases, they have words, they tell your intuition, where to start looking at and kind of guide you along the way. Where tarot, if you don't know the meanings of the symbols and the meanings of the suits, then you don't have that guide. It's just that free open space. And I like that too.
Well, and it's funny because me and you have had the conversation in the past when we talk about the way we work within our intuitive selves. And both me and Danielle offer intuitive services and energetic and mediumship services professionally. We've talked about how I need to focus mine more. And when I put my intuitive net out there, it's more broad and like I throw a wide net and I need to focus it a little bit more. Whereas I feel like if I use my cards to focus that. Okay, I'm going to pick out these 3 things on this card that feel right to me. And that's going to be the path that I travel down for a little bit versus picking and plucking out of thin air in 5 different directions. Whereas you have talked about with me in the past how you like the idea of unfocusing so much and opening up more. So I can see that tarot, if there isn't that more specific guidance, offers that, which is kind of
Right. I could get hyper focused on one thing in the tarot card in the beginning. And I would always think, boy, if I'm right, I am really, really right. But if I'm wrong, I'm going down that rabbit hole. But I have since learned to broaden that out a little bit. You know, when I read, and I say this to my clients a lot, it's like somebody takes, you know, like 5 jigsaw puzzles and dumps them all on one table. And I have to figure out where those pieces go. And being hyper focused on something makes that job a lot harder. And when you can broaden your thinking and broaden your perspective, that it gives you that ability to leave that idea that you're trying to bring forth open for the client to interpret it for themselves, for their life. And that's happened a lot, where I will think, even yesterday, I was like, I don't know if this is a work relationship or a friendship. You know, I was going back and forth, and she's like, wow, it could really go for both. And then as we got into it more, she's like, nope, that's this one. So, you know, it gives them that playground to kind of figure it out themselves too.
Yeah, there's 2 things. I'm going to say the phrase spiritual huddle, just so you remind me to come back to it when I say, what was I going to say? But the first thing is, I was actually watching on Netflix. It's the new show on Netflix with Tyler Henry.
I can't remember the name of it. I watch it too.
Right. Well, he has, I was watching that yesterday, and in one of the things, I loved the way he said it. He said he likens his mediumship sessions like artwork, or I'm not going to quote it specifically. So go to Netflix, check it out, watch the beginning of the first episode.
I think it's called Life After Death.
Okay. I think so.
I think it is.
But he talks about, he likens his readings like a blank canvas, and that the energies, the messages he picks up on are the paints, and it's his job to figure out how to put them on the blank canvas so that they make sense to the artwork of the reading. And just the way he said that it made so much sense. Like the messages are the artwork, like you said. That I just really liked that. I love that.
Right. It's the puzzle. I could describe to you the pieces of the puzzle, but you know, it's up to you and I both to figure out how those pieces fit together.
And that's the notion of the spiritual huddle. I was doing some work with some of my stuff for my business, and the whole notion of a spiritual huddle came up, in the idea that we get to work together with those we sit with to, I lost your picture. So as we said, Danielle got kicked off for a minute. Sorry for the glitch. But as we were talking about the whole notion of a spiritual huddle, and the terminology of that popped into my mind yesterday, and the notion that it really is like a huddle or a collaborative effort when we can sit down with a client and we can share, like you said, share the pieces that are out on the table, and they know the parts of their life that those pieces are pulling on, and then it becomes a group effort or a conversation that just flows. I love that.
I absolutely love that phrase. Love it. And I love the notion of it because it's so true. But yes, I love that phrase.
So we've discussed a little bit the notion of tarot as professionals. I don't have a whole lot of experience with tarot as a professional. I do know that as a personal experience, I do have a tarot deck that I don't have it in here. Admittedly, that's what I step into when I'm open for a challenge. I still see you. Oh, you're still there.
I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. Hey, this is life. We were discussing earlier, me and Danielle, the notion that sometimes life happens in our podcasts. My 5-year-old's in the other room. My daughter's going to get home in a minute, and they're going to get off the bus, and the dog's going to go nuts. So you just have to be patient with our life.
Yes, there's always that one person you forget to warn. I'm doing this. Don't call.
But for me, I step into tarot when I want to expand that muscle a little bit, that I want to learn more muscle about it. So talk a little bit about your personal experiences, and I'm going to go close my door.
Okay. So, like I said, a mentor of mine brought tarot into my life, and we started. She would bring up someone who had passed, and she would ask me to read for read about them. Tell me something about their life by reading tarot, because we don't want to go into anyone's energy. I don't anyway. I don't believe in reading people without their permission, so that's why we did it that way. And then she would have me, to get used to the cards and familiar with the cards, she would have me pull a card every single day. And that's what I have the people in our development group do. I suggest they do that. My clients who want to get into it, and this can go for oracle cards as well. It doesn't have to just be tarot, but to, the way I feel, the more specific the question, the more specific the answer. So I will ask, what is the energy? What is the energy of today hold in store for me? Or what is the energy of this particular situation if I'm looking for something specific? But a lot of times I'll just say, what's the energy of today? And I'll pull a card and I'll look at that card and I'll see what that card, what feelings, knowings come up for me with that card. Sometimes I'll write it down. In the beginning, I wrote it down a lot. And then at the end of the day, I kind of reflect back on that card to see, what I was feeling in the morning. Did that come to fruition? Is something happen that relates to the card that I didn't think about in the morning? And, I just kind of go from there. But I do use it daily, and not only for clients, not only for a business purpose.
I love that. That's actually something, my very first deck ever is the color card deck from Ina Segal, Secret Language of Colors. I love that deck. I always go back to that deck. It's kind of like my first love with intuitive spiritual experience for myself. And that's what I started doing, is I would pull the cards out. I'd shuffle them up. I'd take a minute to center myself. I'd flip a card over, and what's this card telling me? And there is I can pull one out just to help people understand. There is a picture of a color. There is the color, and then there's just like a little phrase. So there's not a lot to really guide you deeply into the color, but there's just enough to give you a little bit of a glimpse into it. And I found myself journaling. Okay, what does this color mean? What does it feel like? What do I hear? What do I know? And it actually led to me creating meditations off of those colors, because I found myself wanting to work with colors deeper. So I created my own meditations, because I didn't have the skill to look at the color and just meditate on it. I needed the recording to guide me through it at that point. And that it just kind of all led into, okay, this is what feels right to me, and led into more connection with my spiritual gifts deeper. And I still do that, because this morning I pulled out a card from one of my decks and I started journaling about it. And it actually brought up something a little different than I had meant in the past. And I pulled out one of my Archetype decks, and I feel like that runs parallel to tarot, and it was like, okay, this is what it's meaning for me. And it was interesting to listen and witness that. So I love that.
I like that you bring that up too, because I am one, and we have had this discussion so many times, and you've helped me so many times, but I am one of those people who sometimes I just can't turn my brain off to concentrate on something, or to meditate, or God forbid, silently meditate. But journaling is a great way to get through that, and using the cards. And I love that you use the color card for that, because I literally sometimes, with the way my brain is like today, I would look at that and be like, gold. It's pretty shiny.
Right.
And I would not be able to get into depth without something guiding me through. So I think this just goes to say too, it's like we always say, whatever works for you, take what you need, leave the rest. If, even day to day, some days maybe meditation is going to work for you. Other days, journaling is going to be that option. But I think maybe you should talk a little bit more, if you want, if you're comfortable with it, about the archetype cards and how they relate into tarot too. Because, I know until I met you, I really didn't know anything about archetype and archetype cards.
Absolutely. One thing I want to touch on before I move into those is the notion of, if you're more imaginative versus if you need that structure. Listening within this conversation, I love that tarot allows for those that are a little bit more imaginative to go down that imaginative path. And those that need a little bit more structure, it offers a little bit more structure. And I love that about it.
Right.
So I have this archetype deck from Caroline Miss, and I don't have the actual title of it, so I apologize, but it's a big deck. They're big cards. I don't know. On an odd note, I don't know how to shuffle little decks anymore. Me and my played Spit last night, and it was the tiniest deck ever. And I was like, this is too small to shuffle. Uh, but the archetypes are like spiritual personalities or patterns. And again, this is what I have learned about them, my experience with them, and the connection I have built within that concept. There is a lot of deep extra learning you can do and exploring on these. So take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But my belief of archetypes, they're like spiritual personalities or patterns that happen within our life that we work through and we embody. And I like this deck because I feel like it guides us through understanding the light attribute of what something offers us, but also the more unpopular lesson that it offers us as well. And it kind of offers us a guidepost. Like this morning, one of them that came up was the eternal child, which wouldn't normally fit into the messages that I was receiving about prioritizing and choosing what I was doing in my day and focusing and being more disciplined and responsible. But the ideas of the shadow side of it really helped to kind of guide me to, if you don't do this, then you could move in this path. So maybe you want to stay focused, so you move in the proper part versus getting off track, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And when you talk about it more, a little bit more in depth, I can totally see how that goes hand in hand with tarot, like the court cards of tarot.
Yep.
It's super interesting.
And there's different archetypes. Like I've noticed when me and you talk about tarot and we get into exploring some of the tarot, I find that occasionally there's an archetype that pops into my mind. I'm like, oh, it's like that archetype. Or when I'm spreading them out now and I pull them out, I'm like, oh, that's kind of like tarot. So yeah, in the deck itself has, it has a picture, and it has, I would say, the character, the archetype. And then there's the light attribute and the shadow attribute. And I feel like I like the notion of finding ourselves and allowing ourselves to be both. Because we had a couple episodes ago, we talked about shadow work. And I love the notion of witnessing our more unpopular sides, being able to embrace the more positive, light-filled sides that we have, witnessing the unpopular side, and finding our true self in the middle. Because the unpopular, more shadow side is there to guide us. It's there to support us. Yet we don't want to look at it. So I love that tarot and archetypes offer us the ability to be like, okay, let's look at this a little bit, but let's guide ourselves so we don't get lost in it.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, a lot of people don't read reversals in tarot, and I happen to read them because I feel the same way. We learn from that unpopular reversed card, and it's not always an unpopular or darker version either, but there's a lesson to be learned usually when they show up in reverse. So that's a really good point.
Have you ever had a reversal pop up and be like, it's more of a celebration that they have already shifted that energy versus this is what you need to do? I feel like so often when I have a card that's flipped over or that it's reversed, that it actually in a reading is more like, you know what? This is acknowledging that you are moving this, you are shifting this, and that you have changed this pattern. And I love that when that happens.
Today, as a matter of fact, I pulled a card for someone today, and it was the Nine of Cups. So if you know anything about tarot, you know that's an abundance card, whether it's upright or reversed. And it just, for her and what I was feeling for her intuitively, she took that step she needed to get into that Nine of Cups energy. But really recently, she crossed that line, and I was like, yes. But there are cards that do that are celebratory, both upright or reversed. And there are also times where I will pull a reverse or an upright, depending on how you look at it, and go, it's the lesson aspect, or no, it's not the lesson, it's the lighter aspect. So you really have to go with how you feel more so than what you're seeing in front of you.
I'm throwing my cards around. Hang on.
That's what I do.
It's a big deck.
That's my job.
I love the fact though that you can question that, because I do that sometimes. There's sometimes I'm like, oh, this is reversed on purpose. I need to read the reversal. And other times, like, nope, it just didn't shuffle right. It feels more like the lighter side. So,
like, I know what you're trying to tell me, but I'm feeling something different.
yep. So, any thoughts on personal use of tarot before we maybe move into pulling a couple of cards today?
Anything else that we haven't touched on already? Off the top of my head, girlfriend, I honestly can't think of another one. And if you were trying to lead me somewhere with that and you got something, no, I just don't.
No, I can't say. The only other thing that I think we touched on this a little bit, but I feel like tarot gets to come out of the shadows and it gets to be something, and in general, not just tarot, but other card decks, other types of spirituality, it gets to be part of the conversation at the spiritual table versus some of the older processes of you have these beliefs and then you have these beliefs. And I feel like we get to celebrate a blending. So if you come to your spiritual table with some core religious beliefs, then whatever tools you pick up to express that unique belief get to be an accent to what you've already brought to the table or what makes you you, and gets to help guide you in that process. It doesn't have to be a one or the other. And I guess I just felt like we need to hit on that one last time before we move on.
Yeah, I do love that. Thank you for that. And I also want to say it's okay to introduce tarot to younger people, like your daughter's age, our granddaughter's age. I purchased a deck for our granddaughter for her birthday that was specifically created for children, with children in mind. And the pictures are for kids and the meanings are for kids. And we look at those cards and talk about those cards a lot. And she, she sees me do it. She sees both her parents reading. So she's interested. And I just like that there are child-friendly decks and child-friendly meanings to the cards that you can discuss and get them listening to their intuition early on.
Yes, I like the notion of child-friendly decks. My Leah, when they were little, and now Ava when they're little, Leah's a little bit more independent now, so we don't as often, and I can't say as I have with Ava in a while, but often pulling a color card they love, like, hey, pull a color card for me. And there's actually a really great soul seedlings deck by, oh my gosh, I don't have them here, they're out in the camper. Jessica Falloon, I think is who, I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. She has a soul seedlings deck, which is a beautiful affirmation deck that's great for kids. But I love the notion that there gets to be a child's tarot deck, because I know, like, the tarot deck that I have, I was gifted and I love it. But it would be confusing and overwhelming for somebody like Ava. And even for somebody a little bit older, it might be a little bit overwhelming for Leah. But I love that there's specific decks that you can explore this in a safe and comfortable language.
Right. Then there may be other ones, but the one I found, I don't know if anybody checks Kickstarter out. I have a little bit of a Kickstarter addiction, and I happen to see it on there. It's called Faunabelle, Faun, Faunabelle. And I don't remember who it's by, but it is a gorgeous deck. And I know our granddaughter just loves it. And I know we talked about it, but I got to hit on one myth, because you had said you were gifted your deck. You knew it was coming, right? And, a lot of people hear that you have to be gifted a tarot deck, not even your first, but I think your first is part of the big, big myth. in order to read them. And as far as I'm concerned, that could not be farther from the truth. I will tell you, I have been gifted many decks. People know you're into tarot and they just start gifting them to you. And the ones that I connect with most are the ones I have picked out. There have been one or two decks that I've been gifted that I've never once picked up because I just don't feel that draw to the artwork, to the energy of the deck. So
yeah, I have to say, I think, not that I have maybe one, maybe two tarot decks, but in the other probably dozen that I have sitting around here currently, I think that maybe two have been gifted to me. The rest I have invested it in. And I've invested in them because I wanted to work with them for myself at that time, or I liked the way they looked, the way they felt right to me, and they inspired me in the work that I was doing. So I completely agree, and I'm actually glad you said that.
Yeah, I go online if I'm interested in a deck, or I wanted an angel deck. You and I talked about this and I put it in the group, asked if anybody knew of angel decks. So I researched it on Google and I found one on Kickstarter being made now. I'm so excited. But when I find something I think I like, I'll Google the pictures. I'll look through every picture. I'll pick out my favorite cards and, I'll see what the tower looks like because that's my favorite card. And if I'm not feeling that artwork, and I don't get it.
Very
I have
cool.
to really be pulled to it in order to buy it.
Very cool. So how do you feel about pulling some cards for our listeners and ourselves today?
I think it's a great idea. I'm
Okay.
always for it.
So I'm going to let you discuss yours a little bit. I'm going to pop my head out the door and I'll be right back.
No problem. I know this podcast was about tarot kind of specifically today, kind of not. But even before we started recording, I pulled out the Healing Mantra deck by Matt Kahn. I don't know what it is today, but I am feeling the feels for healing mantras. So I've been shuffling the whole time, and I just am going to ask what it is our listeners and Karen and I need to know today, need to hear. For those of you who do not know Matt Kahn, he channels angels. He's been doing it all his life. So there is a book that goes along with it. Let me show you the deck. It's called the Healing Mantra deck, again from Matt Kahn. And this is the only deck I absolutely use the book for, because the man channels angels. Who am I to paraphrase the angels? So I pulled a card. I'm going to read it, but I also want to say, as far as my business tarot readings go, when I do guidance readings, when I use tarot, I also incorporate Matt Kahn's healing mantras. In most of them, I feel that a mantra will help people get through stuck points in their lives. And 99% of the time, they go exactly with the reading. It still freaks me out. Every time I pull a card, I'm like, oh my God, this couldn't be better. I couldn't have picked a better one. So I just love it. But the one I picked for us is creating cooperation. And the mantra that goes with it is more gets accomplished when everyone has a role to play. So I just want to read what the angels say about that. When cooperation is created, the unity of all is access to accomplish more in one moment than any one person can do alone. As a creator of cooperation, you are giving others the right to contribute, which only broadens the effect of collective expression. Once cooperation is created, all facades of competition melt away, allowing each individual to feel a renewed depth of self-worth by serving a vision greater than any degree of individual gain. This mantra is ideal for enhancing teamwork, transforming family dynamics, and increasing inner peace. Love that.
I love that the pink and the gold that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you are a color girl.
I am. Self-love and divine healing. I love that. Perfect. And Bella even loves it. I heard her in the background.
Yes, because my husband happened to pull in. So all the sounds.
You all heard what happened when the bus pulled up. So if you didn't, then wow, that was good. That was a good thing. So I'm actually going to use the Archetype deck because we talked about it earlier. And the one thing I like about the Archetype is that as I work with it more, I learn to slow down and process what is pulled out. So we're going to do that today. And usually I'll open up my deck and I'll pull which one I'm drawn to. If I'm going to sit with a person, I'm going to have them choose it. But if not, I choose what I'm more specifically drawn to. And I feel like this one's popping out. So this is a huge deck. The Poet. This is the card. I love the doves. Automatically, the piece of the doves and the ability to rise above sticks right out at me. Like, I feel like this person is praying, is asking for divine guidance, is asking for peace and light. And I feel like these doves are carrying that prayer up to the heavens and are bringing that notion to move into a higher awareness, move into a broader thinking. So that's automatically what sticks out to me. But the Poet light attribute expresses soul insight in a symbolic language, and the Shadow attribute turns a lyric gift into negative or destructive effect. So the notion of the Poet, when I look at this, the first thing besides the dove and the prayer and the raising your vibration with your words is the notion that our words have power. And yes, the pattern of our words, yes, each word has power, but the pattern of our words has power. So the words that we put together in this poetry of life are what help. And Danielle, obviously, you know this, are well versed in this, but the words in our head and the words we put together in this poetry of life help to guide our energy. And that this card reminds us to watch the thoughts and the patterns within our dialogue, within the dialogue within our head and our dialogue to others. And that when we can raise the vibration, raise the energy and the emotion within that dialogue, that we get to move it away from the struggle and we get to shift into change and openness and a healing and a broad peace and light. And I feel like these days, more than any, the power of that within our life is a super powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot take my eyes off, and this is how I read intuitively, cannot take my eyes off those doves looking like they're coming straight from her lips. And I'm thinking to myself as you're talking, if you have this inner peace inside of you, if you can get to a place where you are happy and calm and peaceful inside, that's going to come from you no matter what. And the same, like you said, your thoughts, if they are angry or frustrated, that's going to come out as well. But I love shifting the pattern, and we can choose that. I love that picture. I just do. I really do. But you know what I noticed too, what was interesting to me, I assumed, being a tarot reader, that the shadow attribute would show up when the card is upside down. So both the light and the shadow show up when you pull the card.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I thought it would have to be upside down for the shadow, like the words would be inverted. So
Nope.
You knew which one to read. So you intuitively have to figure out which one you think it is too.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's why I like this deck. And I feel like it works well with me now because it encourages me to slow down and process the card. What am I feeling most today? Like for me, when I look at this card, like you said, we have the choice, but I feel like it's almost like a character in a story. And I really should work with this deck with my teenager because they love the notion of characters, but it's almost like a character in a story. And it feels like this individual has just been with her head down and her hands down and focusing on the more shadowy parts. And they have surrendered that shadow, surrendered to the fact that they don't know. Maybe they don't know how to move forward. Maybe they don't know how to pull themselves out of this pattern of focusing on the shadow. So they're surrendering that. They're surrendering that in prayer. They're surrendering it with asking for peace and calling for peace and asking to focus on something different. In just doing that, it's automatically lifted. And it's almost like those doves take that prayer for peace and lift it up. And
yeah, they're almost carrying away that darker version of the card, that darker pink, carrying it away in surrender. Love that.
And I really love the notion. I don't want to touch too much on global issues or politics because I know that's not really us, but I really love the notion of this imagery and taking the notion of imagining us sending light, peace, and love on the doves of a wing to struggles and chaos in the world. Wherever you feel drawn to send that, imagine that there are doves, energetic spiritual doves that are around you, and ask them to send peace and light to fill in the blank wherever you are drawn to send it. I feel like that is such a powerful pause moment that we could take.
That is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me dive into it. So, any thoughts before we finish up today?
I think we're good. I do want to throw a little tease out there that you and I may or may not be having something very exciting coming up very soon, but we don't want to say anything about it just yet.
Absolutely. Expanding on conversations that we've had today and in the past. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I encourage you all to look us both up. I'm at Unique Beauty and Meditation on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find my link tree at either Instagram or Facebook, as well as I think we can put it in the comments below. I have Reiki courses. I have packages for meditation, intuitive readings, and energy work, so that we can get in our own spiritual huddle and figure out the best way to connect you with your unique divine expression. How about you, Danielle?
Oh, I knew you were going to do this to me. You know, mine is different on every platform. divine-clarity.com, Divine Clarity on Facebook, and divine_clarity on Instagram. And my services are listed there as well if you are drawn to something, or we can create something unique to you, to your needs that day.
Very cool. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for sharing in conversation with me, Danielle. And I wish everybody a beautiful evening or afternoon, wherever this finds you.
Me too. I'm going to go enjoy this gorgeous, sunshiny, beautifully warm day.
We don't have a sunshiny day. It's rather gray, but we had some. So maybe it'll come up here tomorrow.
I hope so.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.